That morning when I saw the hotel receipt from the French Quarter on her phone, I understood, my life would never be the same again. My name is Leon and I had been happily married for 6 years. At least, that's what I thought until that March morning. Vanessa had always been my anchor, my muse, the woman who understood me without words. We met at one of those boring corporate parties where she was photographing the event. Her eyes lit up when she talked about her work, about how important it was to capture the moment, to freeze an emotion. I fell in love instantly. Our first years together were a real fairy tale. We moved to New Orleans, where I found a decent position analyzing financial markets for a medium-sized investment company. The salary was good, enough for comfortable living in our apartment in the Garden District. Vanessa was developing her career as a photographer, shooting weddings, corporate events, sometimes artistic projects. We had children, 2 wonderful little ones who became the center of our universe. Even our little chihuahua named Ricky seemed happy in this family. Everything started changing about 8 months ago. Vanessa got a commission to do a photo shoot for a new exhibition at the art museum. She was thrilled about this project, said it could be a breakthrough in her career. I was happy for her, supportive, not even suspecting that right there, among paintings and sculptures, she would meet him. Thomas, a museum curator. A man with refined manners and knowledge of art he could talk about for hours. Vanessa mentioned him from time to time. Thomas recommended an interesting exposition. Thomas said my photos could be part of the permanent collection. I didn't pay much attention to it. Why would I? Professional contacts are normal. But then the small things started. Vanessa promised to pick up the kids from daycare, didn't pick them up, said she got held up at a meeting with a client. She promised to cook dinner for my parents who came to visit, ordered delivery at the last minute, looked confused and nervous. She promised to go away with me for the weekend to Gulf Shores, but the day before the trip said she had urgent work. Every promise shattered against reality. At first I chalked it up to stress, to being overwhelmed. I had a friend Brenda who worked as a psychologist, and when I mentioned Vanessa's behavior to her during a chance meeting at a coffee shop, she just raised an eyebrow. Leon, women don't forget important things just like that. Either she's overworked, or something else is distracting her attention. Something else. Those words stuck in my head. I started paying attention to details. Vanessa began staying late at work more often. Sometimes her phone would ring and she'd go to another room to answer. When I asked who it was, she'd answer vaguely, a client, questions about a project. In April, she went to some photo conference for the weekend, but when I asked for details, she couldn't tell me anything specific. My friend Tommy, whom I'd been friends with since college, asked me directly one evening, "Is everything okay between you and Vanessa? You've just seemed kind of down lately." I didn't know what to tell him. Everything seemed normal on the surface, but inside something was cracking at the seams. The breaking point came in May. Vanessa was supposed to go with me to a party at my colleague's, our company's corporate event that I'd warned her about a month in advance. She promised. I even bought her a new dress. But an hour before we were supposed to leave, she called, "Leon, I'm sorry, I can't make it. An urgent order came up, the client insists on meeting today." I arrived at the party alone. All evening I answered questions, "Where's Vanessa?" feeling like an idiot. My boss Thad sympathetically patted me on the shoulder. Creative people, they're always unpredictable. But I saw the surprised looks from my colleagues. They didn't understand why my wife didn't come to such an important event. The next morning, while Vanessa was sleeping, I took her phone. I had never done this before. Never checked, never suspected, never spied. But something pushed me. I opened the Maps app, looked at the history of her car's routes. And then the world stopped. The previous evening, while I was at the corporate event, her car wasn't going to any client. It was parked near Harrah's Casino from 8 in the evening until 10:30. The casino bar area. Then, a hotel in the French Quarter. Until 3 in the morning. I scrolled through the history further back. 2 weeks ago, the same casino, the same hotel. A month ago, again. And again. And again. My hands trembled as I opened other apps. Messages with Thomas. They didn't write anything explicit, everything was careful, but the tone was too intimate. Tonight. Yes, he'll be busy. That was about me. I was he, an obstacle that needed to be bypassed. I quietly put the phone back and left the apartment. Got in the car and just sat there, staring into emptiness. My father went through a divorce when I was 15. My mother left him for another man. I remember him crying in the kitchen, thinking I was asleep. I swore to myself I would never become like him. That I would create a strong family where there would be no betrayal, pain, disappointment. And now here I was, sitting in the car, realizing I was repeating his fate. I couldn't go home right away. I drove to Lake Pontchartrain where Vanessa and I used to spend weekends. The spring winds smelled of freshness and hope, but I felt cold inside. I thought about our children. About how they laugh when Vanessa makes them breakfast. About how she reads to them at night. Was all of this a lie? Can you love your children and at the same time betray their father? The lake was calm that morning, its surface reflecting the gray sky like a mirror. I walked along the shore watching joggers and dog walkers go by, all of them seemingly living normal, uncomplicated lives. I envied them. I envied their simplicity, their ability to just exist without this weight crushing my chest. I sat on a bench and tried to think rationally. As a financial analyst, I was trained to look at situations objectively, to weigh options, to calculate outcomes. But how do you calculate the outcome of a broken marriage? How do you analyze the data of a shattered heart? My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Where are you? Breakfast is ready. I stared at those words. Breakfast is ready. As if everything was normal. As if she hadn't spent last night in a hotel with another man while I smiled politely at my colleagues and made excuses for her absence. I didn't respond. Instead, I called in sick to work. I needed time to think, to plan, to figure out what came next. When I finally returned home, it was late afternoon. Vanessa was in the living room playing with the kids. Ricky was curled up on her lap. She looked up when I entered, concern crossing her face. Leon, where have you been? I was worried. Worried. The word almost made me laugh. But I couldn't afford to show my hand yet. Not until I was ready. Just needed some air, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Work stress. She nodded, accepting the explanation too easily. Or maybe she was just relieved I wasn't asking questions. Want some lunch? I made your favorite pasta. I did laugh then, but it came out bitter. My favorite pasta. That's nice. I walked past her to our bedroom and closed the door. The next 2 weeks were hell. I went to work, played with the kids, talked to Vanessa about mundane things. But inside I was planning. My colleague at work, Brenda's husband, was a lawyer. I asked him to recommend a good divorce attorney, not explaining the details yet. Then I started preparing financially. As an analyst, I knew what to do. I opened separate investment accounts in my name, transferred their part of our joint assets that I had earned. I made copies of all financial documents, bank statements. And then I noticed another detail that shocked me. Over the last 8 months, money had been disappearing from our joint account. Small amounts, $200 here, $300 there. But in total it was close to $5,000. I traced the transactions. Restaurants, hotels, gifts. Vanessa was spending my money on her lover. I dug deeper into the financial records, my professional training kicking in. The pattern was clear once I knew what to look for. Every time there was a withdrawal or charge that coincided with her work meetings or client emergencies. The hotel in the French Quarter appeared on our credit card statement 6 times. 6 times I had paid for my wife to sleep with another man. I made spreadsheets. I documented everything. Dates, times, amounts, locations. It was easier to focus on the numbers than on the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Numbers made sense. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't betray. My colleague at work, a guy named Thad who had gone through his own messy divorce 3 years ago, noticed something was off. You okay, man? He asked one afternoon when we were alone in the break room. You've been pretty quiet lately. I considered brushing him off, but something made me open up. How did you know? I asked. When your wife was cheating. How did you know? Thad's expression changed, sympathy flooding his features. The broken promises, he said quietly. That's how it started. She'd say she'd be somewhere, then wasn't. Had an excuse every time. But it was the pattern, you know? Once or twice, that's life. But when it keeps happening. He trailed off, then looked at me directly. Is Vanessa? I nodded, unable to say the words out loud yet. I'm sorry, man, Thad said. That's rough. You got a lawyer yet? Working on it. Good. Don't wait. And document everything. Every lie, every broken promise, every unexplained expense. Trust me, you'll need it. I took his advice seriously. I started keeping a journal, writing down every instance of Vanessa's absences, every canceled plan, every lie. The notebook filled up quickly, 8 months of betrayal documented in black and white. I also started paying more attention to her behavior when she was home. She was distracted, constantly checking her phone. Sometimes she'd smile at a message, then quickly hide the phone when she noticed me watching. Other times, she'd disappear into the bathroom for 20 minutes, and I could hear the soft murmur of her voice through the door. One evening while she was in the shower, I checked her phone again. The messages with Thomas had become more frequent. They were planning their next meeting, this coming Friday, while I would be at a conference in Baton Rouge. Except I had already canceled my trip to Baton Rouge. I told my boss I needed to handle a family matter. I didn't tell Vanessa. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. Friday arrived. I left the apartment that morning as usual, told Vanessa I'd be back Sunday evening. She kissed me goodbye, wished me a good trip. Her eyes were bright with anticipation, but not for seeing me again. I drove around the block and parked where I could see our building. At noon, Vanessa left with an overnight bag. She got in her car and drove toward the French Quarter. I followed at a distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. She parked near a boutique hotel on Dauphine Street. I watched as she checked her makeup in the rearview mirror, took a deep breath and got out. She looked beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. And she was using that beauty to destroy our family. 20 minutes later, Thomas arrived. I recognized him from the photos Vanessa had shown me from the museum exhibition. Tall, well-dressed, with that air of cultural sophistication that probably impressed her. He kissed her on the cheek when they met in the hotel lobby, his hand resting on the small of her back as they walked to the elevator. I sat in my car for an hour, feeling numb. Then I drove to my lawyer's office and gave him everything. The financial records, the location data, the documented lies, and now, photographic evidence of them entering the hotel together. This is solid, my lawyer said, reviewing the materials. Very solid. Louisiana is a no-fault state, but this kind of evidence strengthens your case for custody and asset division significantly. Especially the financial aspect. Using marital funds for an affair doesn't play well with judges. I want primary custody, I said. And I want to make sure she can't use any of our assets to continue this, whatever this is. We can do that, he assured me. Give me a week to prepare the paperwork. In the meantime, secure any remaining joint assets you want to protect. That evening I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel, ironically not far from where Vanessa was staying with Thomas. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to process everything. 6 years of marriage. 2 children. A life we'd built together. All of it meaningless now. My phone rang. It was Tommy. Hey man, Brenda told me what's going on. I'm sorry. You need anything? I don't know what I need, I admitted. Want to grab a drink? I can be there in 20. We met at a quiet bar in the warehouse district. Tommy didn't push me to talk, just sat with me while I nursed a bourbon and tried to make sense of my shattered world. The thing that kills me, I finally said, is that she's still pretending. She kissed me goodbye this morning like everything was normal. Like she wasn't planning to spend the weekend with him. That's what they do, Tommy said. They compartmentalize. In her mind, probably both things can exist, loving you and the kids and whatever this thing is with this guy. That's not love, I said bitterly. No, Tommy agreed. It's not. Saturday morning I went home. The apartment was empty. Vanessa wouldn't be back until Sunday evening. I packed up all my important documents, family photos with just me and the kids, items that had sentimental value. I moved them to a storage unit I'd rented the day before. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I logged into our home computer and found Vanessa's email account. She'd never logged out. There were emails from Thomas going back 8 months, right after the museum exhibition. They started professional, discussing photography and art. But within weeks the tone changed. Compliments became flirtation. Flirtation became explicit planning. One email from 3 months ago made me close my eyes in pain. Thomas had written, I can't stop thinking about you. Tell me you feel the same. And Vanessa had responded, I do. But this is complicated. I have a family. I have responsibilities. I love Leon but, that one word said everything. She loved me but not enough. She loved our children but not enough. She loved our life together but not enough. Sunday evening Vanessa came home glowing. She kissed the children, asked about their weekend with the babysitter. I'd arranged for one, telling her I'd had to stay in Baton Rouge an extra day. She seemed happier than I'd seen her in months. How was the conference? She asked, starting to unpack her overnight bag. Educational, I said, watching her carefully. How was your weekend? Quiet, she said smoothly. Caught up on some editing, took a long bath, just relaxed. It was nice to have some time to myself. Every word was a lie. Every single word. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending. Vanessa, we need to talk. She turned and something in my tone made her freeze. What's wrong? How long have you been sleeping with Thomas? The color drained from her face. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her overnight bag slipped from her hands and fell to the floor, clothes spilling out. I saw a receipt flutter out, from the hotel on Dauphine Street. Leon, Don't, I said, holding up my hand. Don't insult me with more lies. I know everything. I have the hotel receipts, the location data from your car, the bank statements showing where our money went, the emails, and I saw you go into that hotel with him on Friday. She sank onto the couch, her whole body shaking. How long have you known? Does it matter? I can explain. Explain what? My voice was rising now, all the anger and hurt I'd been suppressing for weeks finally breaking through. Explain how you've been lying to me for 8 months? Explain how you spent our money we're supposed to be saving for our children's education, on hotels with your lover? Explain how you kissed me goodbye on Friday and then went straight to him. Tears were streaming down her face. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't plan it. Stop, I said. Don't give me that. Nothing just happens. You made choices. Every time you texted him instead of paying attention to our kids. Every time you lied about where you were going. Every time you broke a promise to our family because you were too busy with him. Those were choices. I love you, she sobbed. I still love you. I never stopped loving you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this, I said coldly. And don't tell me about Thomas. You don't love him either. I read your emails. He's just an escape, a fantasy. But fantasies end, Vanessa. And so does this marriage. Leon, please. I've already filed for divorce, I continued. My lawyer has all the evidence. You can fight it if you want, but you'll lose. I want primary custody of the children. You can have visitation rights, but they're staying with me. You can't take my children from me, she screamed, standing up. I can and I will, I said. You prioritized your affair over them. You spent money that should have gone to them. You broke promises to them repeatedly because you were too busy with your lover. Any judge will see that. She collapsed back onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. Part of me wanted to comfort her. 6 years of marriage didn't disappear in an instant. But I remembered my father. I remembered how he gave my mother a second chance after her first affair. And I remembered how she betrayed him again, how it destroyed him. I wouldn't make that mistake. I need you to pack your things and leave, I said. Tonight. You can stay with Naomi or get a hotel. I don't care. But you can't stay here. Where will I go? She asked helplessly. That's not my problem anymore, I said. You should have thought about that before you destroyed our family. She looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw the moment she realized I wasn't going to change my mind. There would be no second chance. No forgiveness. No working it out for the sake of the children. I'll get my things, she whispered. I watched her pack, making sure she only took her personal belongings. She moved like a sleepwalker, mechanically folding clothes and putting them in suitcases. The children were asleep. Thank God they were asleep and didn't have to see this. Before she left, she turned to me one last time. I'm sorry, Leon. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said. You hurt me, you hurt our children, and you destroyed our family. Your intentions don't matter. The damage is done. She left and I locked the door behind her. Then I went to check on the children. They were both sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world had just shifted on its axis. I sat on the floor between their beds and let myself cry for the first time since this nightmare began. The next morning, I called my boss and explained I needed some time off for a family emergency. He was understanding. The company had good leave policies and I'd been there for 5 years without taking much time off. Then I called my parents. My mother cried on the phone. My father just said, I'm sorry, son. I know how this feels. I know you do, Dad, I said. And I'm sorry I didn't understand before. I'm sorry I thought you should have tried harder to make it work with Mom. You were a kid, he said. You didn't understand. But Leon, listen to me. You're doing the right thing. Protect yourself and those kids. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Over the next few weeks, the divorce process began in earnest. Vanessa hired her own lawyer, but she didn't have much to work with. The evidence against her was overwhelming. My lawyer was efficient and thorough, and we quickly moved toward a settlement. Vanessa tried to fight for joint custody, but every time she did, we presented more evidence of her neglect. The time she forgot to pick up the kids, the promises she broke, the way she prioritized her affair over her family responsibilities. The breaking point came when her lawyer requested access to our financial records, hoping to prove I was hiding assets. Instead, what they found was the paper trail of her spending on Thomas. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts. All paid for with marital funds. She's going to settle, my lawyer told me after that revelation. Her attorney knows they can't win this. We'll get you primary custody, she'll get every other weekend and one evening a week. As for assets, you're getting the apartment since you paid for it, most of the savings, and she's responsible for half the marital debt, which includes all those credit card charges for her hotels and dinners. But the financial aspect wasn't what mattered most to me. It was the children. They needed stability, a parent who put them first. And that parent was me. The divorce was finalized 3 months after I filed. It was remarkably quick for Louisiana, but when one party has that much evidence and the other doesn't want a public trial, things move fast. Vanessa showed up to the final hearing looking devastated. She'd lost weight, had dark circles under her eyes. Naomi, who'd been supporting her, had apparently distanced herself after learning the full extent of the affair. Naomi was happily married herself and didn't want to be associated with someone who'd destroyed her family. When the judge read the custody arrangement, primary physical custody to me, limited visitation for Vanessa, I saw her shoulders slump in defeat. This was real now. This was permanent. After the hearing, I ran into Thomas in the courthouse hallway. He was there for something unrelated, and the shock on his face when he saw me was almost comical. "Leon," he said, his voice shaky. "Thomas," I replied coolly. "How's the museum business?" I don't work there anymore," he admitted. "I resigned." "Interesting," I said. "That wasn't necessary on my account. Though I suppose when word gets around about an affair with a married photographer, it doesn't look great for someone in a position of trust with expensive art." He flushed. "It wasn't like that. Vanessa and we connected." "I don't care," I interrupted. "I really don't. But I want you to know something. Vanessa isn't who you think she is. She told me she didn't love you. She told me you were just convenient. An escape. So whatever connection you think you had, it wasn't real. Not for her." I walked away, leaving him standing there. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel anything except tired. The hardest part was telling the children. They were young, but they knew something was wrong. Why wasn't Mommy living with us anymore? When would she come home? I sat them down one afternoon, Ricky curled up between them on the couch, and tried to explain in terms they could understand. "Mommy and Daddy love you very much," I said. "That will never change. But sometimes grown-ups can't live together anymore. It doesn't mean we don't love you. It just means we'll live in different places." "Did we do something wrong?" my daughter asked, her eyes filling with tears. "No, baby," I said, pulling her into a hug. "This has nothing to do with you. You and your brother are the best things that ever happened to me." "When will we see Mommy?" my son asked. "She'll visit every other weekend and one evening every week. You'll still see her. She still loves you." But as the weeks went by, I saw how Vanessa's choices affected them. They became clingier, more anxious. They had nightmares. My daughter started asking if I was going to leave too. "I'm not going anywhere," I told her every time. "I promise you I'm staying right here." And I kept that promise. I adjusted my work schedule to be home when they got out of school. I learned to cook meals they actually liked instead of relying on takeout. I became room parent for both their classes. I was there for every soccer game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. Vanessa tried, I'll give her that. She showed up for her visitation times, brought them small gifts, tried to make the most of her limited time with them. But there was something hollow about it. She'd broken their trust too, not just mine. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Naomi at a grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me but approached anyway. "Leon," she said, "I want you to know. I had no idea about any of it. If I'd known she was doing that to you, to those kids." "It's not your fault," I said. "You were being a good friend to her." "I'm not anymore," Naomi said quietly. "I can't respect what she did. My husband and we've been married 15 years. If he ever did something like that, or if I did, I just can't understand it." "Neither can I admitted. "How are the kids doing?" "They're adjusting. It's hard, but kids are resilient." Naomi hesitated, then said, "You should know Vanessa moved away. She couldn't handle it here anymore. Too many people knew what happened. The photography community is small and word spread. She lost a lot of clients." I felt a twinge of something, not quite sympathy but not satisfaction either. "Where did she go?" "I don't know. She didn't tell me. She just said she needed a fresh start." "A fresh start? As if you could just pack up your mistakes and leave them behind." The ripple effects of Vanessa's affair continued for months. Thomas, I learned through the grapevine, had indeed lost his position at the museum. Not officially because of the affair, but he'd been encouraged to resign. The board didn't want the scandal. My colleague Brenda's husband, the lawyer who'd recommended my attorney, told me that Thomas had tried to continue seeing Vanessa after the divorce. But apparently she wasn't interested, he said. Once the thrill of the secret was gone, there was nothing real there. That didn't surprise me. I'd read enough of their correspondence to know that it wasn't love. It was excitement, novelty, escape from reality. But reality always catches up. As for me, I focused on rebuilding. The children were my priority always. But I also had to think about myself, about what kind of life I wanted moving forward. Tommy tried to set me up on a date about 8 months after the divorce. Come on, man, he said. You can't hide forever. There are good women out there. I'm sure there are, I said. But I'm not ready. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever be ready to trust someone like that again. That's what everyone says, Tommy replied. Give it time. Maybe he was right. Maybe someday I'd be ready to open my heart again. But not yet. The wound was still too fresh, the betrayal too recent. 1 year after I discovered the affair, I was sitting on our apartment balcony, my apartment now, just mine. The children were asleep, Ricky was curled up on my lap, and the city below was alive with its usual Saturday night energy. I thought about how much had changed in 12 months. How my entire life had been upended and reconstructed. How I'd gone from trusting husband to single father. How I'd learned that the person you love most can also hurt you the deepest. But I also thought about what I'd gained. I had my children full-time. I had my self-respect. I had proven to myself that I could make hard decisions and follow through on them. I hadn't fallen apart when my world crumbled. I'd picked up the pieces and built something new. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa, her weekly check-in about the kids' schedules. Our communication was cordial but cold, limited strictly to parenting issues. She'd sent a few longer messages in the first months after the divorce, trying to explain, to apologize, to somehow make things better. I'd stopped responding to those. There was nothing left to say. I typed back a brief response about the kids' dentist appointments next week, then put my phone away. Brenda had said something to me a few months ago that stuck with me. You're allowed to be angry, she told me. You're allowed to grieve what you lost. But don't let it poison you. Don't let her choices make you bitter. I was trying. Some days were easier than others. Some days I woke up and the first thought wasn't about Vanessa's betrayal. Some days I could look at other couples and not wonder if they were lying to each other too. The children asked about her less often now. They'd adjusted to their new normal. Weekdays with dad, occasional weekends with mom. They seemed happier, actually, without the tension that had filled our apartment in those last months before the divorce. My daughter had said something profound last week. We were doing a puzzle together, just the two of us, while her brother was at a friend's house. Daddy, she'd asked, are you sad that mommy doesn't live here anymore? Sometimes, I'd answered honestly. But I'm happy that you and your brother are here with me. I'm happy too, she'd said, fitting a puzzle piece into place. It's quieter now. Before, when mommy still lived here, it felt like everyone was pretending. I don't like pretending. Kids see more than we think they do. I stood up, careful not to disturb Ricky, and walked to the railing. The French Quarter was lit up in the distance, all those historic buildings full of tourists and locals having the time of their lives. Somewhere out there, in some other city, Vanessa was trying to start over. I didn't wish her ill, but I didn't wish her well either. She was simply irrelevant to my life now. What mattered was the life I was building. A life based on honesty, on showing up, on keeping promises. A life where my children knew they could count on me always. Was it the life I'd planned? No. But it was a good life. And maybe someday it would be a great one. I heard a sound behind me. My son had woken up and was standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Daddy? I had a bad dream. Come here, buddy, I said, opening my arms. He ran to me and I picked him up, holding him close. Want to tell me about it? I dreamed you went away, he said softly. I'm not going anywhere, I promised him, the same promise I made every time. I'm right here. I'll always be right here. We stood there together, father and son, looking out at the city lights. And in that moment, I realized something important. I was going to be okay. We were all going to be okay. The betrayal would always be part of my story. But it wouldn't be the whole story. It wouldn't define me or my children or our future. Vanessa had made her choices. She would live with the consequences. The lost relationships, the damaged reputation, the limited access to her children, the knowledge that she'd thrown away something good for something that turned out to be nothing. And I had made my choices too. To protect myself and my children. To demand honesty and loyalty. To walk away rather than accept less than I deserved. Different people might have handled it differently. Some might have tried couples therapy, given her another chance, worked to rebuild the marriage. But I'd seen what that path looked like with my parents, and I knew it wasn't for me. I carried my son back to his bed, tucked him in, and kissed his forehead. "Sleep well, buddy. I love you." "Love you too, Daddy." Back in my own bedroom, I lay in bed and thought about the future. The kids would grow up. They'd have questions eventually, harder questions than they were asking now. And I'd answer them honestly, age-appropriately, helping them understand that sometimes people make mistakes, and those mistakes have consequences. I'd teach them about trust, about the importance of keeping your word, about showing up for the people you love. I'd model those behaviors every single day so they'd know what a healthy relationship looked like, even if they didn't see it between their parents. And maybe, eventually, I'd be ready to risk my heart again. To trust someone new. To believe that not everyone lies, not everyone betrays, not everyone takes love for granted. But that was for future Leon to figure out. Present Leon had enough to deal with. I closed my eyes and felt sleep beginning to pull me under. Tomorrow was Sunday, the kids and I were going to the zoo. They'd been asking to go for weeks, and the weather was supposed to be perfect. We'd pack a picnic, spend the whole day there, make good memories to replace the bad ones. That's what life was now. One day at a time. One good memory at a time. Slowly rebuilding what had been broken. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.